The unfortunate oil spill in our waters on the 14th of June illustrates the severity of such incidents and the need for our agencies and industry partners to be well prepared and to respond effectively as a team. Beyond the immediate impact at the incident site and to our waters, we are also concerned about the impact to our beaches and wildlife and to our community and businesses. Our agencies have been working closely with industry partners and volunteers to respond quickly to clean up the oil spill. We have also been monitoring its impact on multiple fronts and taking steps to mitigate or reduce them where possible, while developing plans for progressive recovery and resumption to normalcy. Now, thanks to these efforts, we have achieved good progress in dealing with the oil spill. We have largely completed the first phase of the cleanup. The removal of bulk oil from the sea and beaches is nearly completed. There has been no observed oil slick along the East Coast and Changi since 18 June, based on both satellite and drone images. We'll remain vigilant and continue to monitor our waters for oil slicks and sheens. We are now ready to transit to the next phase, which involves more focused cleaning of difficult-to-reach areas at sea and on land, removing the remaining oil in the damaged bunker vessel, and working with our neighboring countries to mitigate the impact of the oil spill on them. This next phase will take time and requires careful attention given its complexity and the risk of repolluting affected areas. The quick response and capabilities of our agencies are due to the strong inter-agency cooperation and collaboration built up over the years. We have a well-established SOP and conducted oil spill response exercises every 2 years, involving the government agencies and our industry partners. The last exercise was conducted in 2022, with the next exercise planned for October this year. For this incident, our SOP has been effective, and our agencies, industry partners, and volunteers have done well. Today, I would like to cover 2 areas. First, I'll take you through a chronology of the incident from 14 June and the steps taken by MPA in the immediate period after the incident, as well as during the first phase of the cleanup operations. And second, to share our plans going forward under phase 2. Let me begin with the chronology of events, starting from the point when MPA was notified of this allusion at 2:22 p.m. on 14 June. Its first patrol craft arrived at the incident site 11 minutes later at 2:33 p.m. Upon confirming that oil had spilled into the water, the patrol craft sprayed dispersant on the observed oil sheens to treat the oil. This needs to be done quickly so that the dispersant can start to break down the oil, which will facilitate subsequent cleaning operations at sea and on land. Otherwise, the oil will start to harden over time and become more difficult to remove. Besides the initial patrol vessel, 11 more vessels from MPA and their contractors were deployed to assist in the response, including through the spraying of dispersants or monitoring for oil slicks in the water. MPA also focused on the safety of the damaged vessel to confirm that it would not sink and conducted checks to ensure that the crew was safe and the spillage was under control. And these steps were critical to prevent more oil from spilling into the sea. There was no further spillage after the initial gush, which released an estimated 400 tons of oil into the sea. Next, MPA activated TNT Salvage Asia, whose staff contacted their boss, Captain Anuj Sahai, at 2:55 p.m. to lay containment booms around the damaged vessel. As Captain Anuj had shared with the media recently, he and his team needed a few hours upon activation to load up the heavy equipment on their vessel and another few hours for their workboats to sail to the incident site. TNT's vessel arrived at the incident location at 9:41 p.m. on 14 June. Despite the challenges of working at night and under bad weather conditions, TNT did well to deploy 200 meters of oil booms around the damaged vessel by working through the night. The deployment of the oil booms was completed at 5:15 a.m. on 15 June. The steps taken by MPA and TNT and their response times are in line with international industry practices for responses to oil spills. As Professor Shane Snyder, currently at Georgia Institute of Technology and former Executive Director of Nanyang Environment and Water Research Institute, said during his interview with the media, Singapore's response to the oil spill was extremely fast. Allow me to explain the purpose of deploying containment oil booms around the damaged vessel, as there's some misperception that these oil booms could have prevented the spilled oil from floating elsewhere and going on shore. Now, first, an oil spill is not like spilling coffee on the floor. If you spill coffee on the floor, the coffee will remain there. You can go get a mop to clean it up. The oil that spills into the ocean, especially when it is a sudden discharge of a large amount, like what happened on 14 June, the oil will not remain stationary at the incident site. It will be carried by tidal currents and waves and start to move away from the site. And as I mentioned earlier, deploying the containment boom around the damaged vessel will take several hours, including the time for the vessel to arrive at the incident site and the time taken to fully deploy the booms. During this time, we must expect a significant amount of the oil that has been spilled into the sea to be carried by tidal currents and waves to other locations away from the incident site. And this is unavoidable, especially during more serious oil spill incidents like what we experienced on 14 June. Hence, the main purpose of the containment boom around the damaged vessel is not to fence in the oil that has been spilled, but it is a preventive measure in case there's further spillage from the damaged vessel. The containment boom can also help to catch some of the oil spill which remain in the vicinity of the incident location and did not float elsewhere. But this is also not 100% foolproof because the tidal currents and waves can carry the oil to go below or above the booms. So some may ask why we did not then place booms along our waterfronts and coastlines immediately to prevent the oil from washing onshore. Now, I understand where the question is coming from, but it is not feasible to deploy booms around the entire coastline of Singapore. Now, if you think about it, if you are going to deploy booms along the entire southern coastline from Pasir Panjang to East Coast, that will require more than 46 kilometers of booms. The booms, once deployed, also require regular maintenance and replacement, as they are subject to weather and waves, and some of them can snap. So for effective deployment of containment booms and to achieve optimal outcomes from our boom supplies, MPA would first need to observe the movement of the oil to assess where the oil is resurfacing before we deploy the booms accordingly. So this is targeted deployment. MPA had therefore deployed vessels and drones to monitor surrounding waters for signs of oil, while it alerts other agencies to step up monitoring of the coastline. MPA also used methods such as predictive modeling, the oil trajectory based on tidal current predictions and real-time weather data, as well as surveillance using satellite imagery. So all this data help to be able to see where the oil is going, and this complements what we do on the ground, the monitoring by the personnel on the ground and the ships at sea. This targeted approach is consistent with international practice and ensures that the booms available are placed where they can be most effective. It also minimizes the need to redeploy the booms between locations, because if you put it at one place and the oil flows somewhere else, you have to redeploy. So this will take up more time and more resources, and it will reduce the effectiveness of our containment measures. So in total, we have deployed more than 3,400 meters of booms so far. MPA also deployed oil skimmers to collect oil observed on the water surface. Now, while the containment and cleanup measures at sea by MPA and its contractors could not fully prevent all the spilled oil from reaching our shores, they have been effective in achieving two outcomes. First, to break down the oil through the quick spraying of dispersant, and as explained earlier, this facilitates the cleanup at sea and on land. And second, to reduce the amount of oil reaching our shores. MPA informed agencies of the spillage on the day of the incident and deployed vessels to the surrounding areas. Agencies, including NEA and SDC, also actively monitored the waters and developing situation and stood ready to respond to oil drifting towards our shores. For example, SDC began to cordon off affected parts of Palawan Beach at about 9:20 p.m. on 14 June, when they first sighted oil sheens on the beach. Spilled oil started reaching our shoreline in Sentosa on the night of 14 June and progressively on the morning of 15 June. Upon observing the spread of oil in waters at Palawan, Siloso, and Tanjong beaches at around 7 a.m., SDC immediately deployed workers to commence cleanup. NEA mobilized their personnel and public cleaning service providers to carry out cleanup operations at East Coast Park, Labrador Nature Reserve, and later Tanah Merah Beach. NEA personnel have supported the cleanup of Sentosa beaches since 19 June. Minister Grace Fu will share more on the progress of the land cleanup in her remarks later. Now, I'll now touch on MOT and MPA's plans for the next phase of our cleanup. Following MPA's initial response to limit the immediate impact of the oil spill, most of the work has been to deal with bulk oil collection on water and land. And this entailed the deployment of assets such as 4 current busters, 4 oil skimmers, and more than 3,400 meters of oil booms. MPA will support our fellow agencies on the continued cleaning up and progressive reopening of our beaches and waterfront areas. Minister Grace Fu and Minister Desmond Lee will share more about these plans. The oil spill situation remains dynamic. Even with the bulk of the cleanup operations nearly completed, some oil remains dispersed within the water column. So we will have to continue to closely monitor the situation at sea, including to watch out for oil that may resurface and float into and affect our coastlines. This is still ongoing work. Another important task ahead is to remove the remaining fuel oil from the damaged vessel. MPA will conduct operations to safely remove the remaining fuel oil from the damaged vessel. And this has to be done very carefully to ensure no further spillage. Our surveyors have completed their assessment and expect the removal operations to take about 1 to 2 weeks. Now, in addition to the remaining fuel oil in the ruptured cargo tank, the vessel was also carrying approximately 800 metric tons of fuel oil in other cargo tanks that fortunately were not damaged. As the remaining fuel in the ruptured cargo tank may be contaminated, all extracted liquid cargo will be sent to Clean Seas, a licensed toxic industrial waste collector for processing. Clean Seas will process the oil into products, which may be further processed and refined into oils of commercial value. Our agencies have been in regular contact with their counterparts from Malaysia and Indonesia since the beginning of the incident, and we stand ready to assist. As the Straits of Malacca in Singapore is a busy shipping channel and an important source of livelihoods for our people, Singapore, Malaysia, and Indonesia have long-standing arrangements and procedures to respond to oil pollution. We also established a revolving fund committee in 1981 to enable quick response to such incidents, which could happen in our waters or it could happen in the waters of our neighbors. Investigations into the incident are ongoing. The prelim findings showed that the elision was caused by the dredger experiencing sudden loss of engine and steering controls. The elision was not due to port congestion, as our port waters and anchorages are not congested. MPA, as the port state, is coordinating closely with their Dutch counterparts, the flag state of the dredger involved, to carry out the investigation. The shipmasters and crew of the vessels involved are cooperating fully with the investigations, and the dredger will remain in Singapore's waters until the investigation is completed. The cost of measures taken after the spill, the resulting economic losses, and the environmental damages arising from the contamination can be assessed for claims. In accordance with international and local laws, the owner of the bunker vessel, Marine Honour, has strict liability for the incident. And this means that it is liable, even if it is not at fault, for the pollution damage caused by the oil spill from its tanker. Their insurer, British Marine, has thus set up a third-party contact to receive claims from affected parties. The owner of Marine Honour retains the right to take recourse action against third parties for its pollution liability.
I will first address the land-based cleaning operations, the challenges involved, and our emphasis on worker safety. I will also provide our estimates on when the beaches can be reopened, as well as how agencies are closely monitoring the impact on affected businesses. Lastly, I will address the efforts by the MSE agencies, NEA, PUB, SFA, in monitoring the impact of our food safety, air, and water quality. First, the progress on land-based cleanup. Agencies have made good progress in land-based cleanup operations. Over 700 cleaning personnel have been deployed, and much of the oil on our beachfront has been cleaned up. About 550 tons of oil-soaked sand and debris from the affected beaches has been removed, and this is being sent to toxic waste treatment facilities for safe treatment and disposal. A total of over 3,400 meters of boom, as we have heard earlier on, have been deployed to prevent oil from being washed ashore or into our inland canals. This effort would not have been possible without the tireless and coordinated efforts of our cleaning personnel from agencies and their service providers. Their well-being is our priority, and we have taken steps to protect their safety. First, on air quality. NEA has been conducting daily air quality tests at East Coast Park, Sentosa, and Labrador Nature Reserve to ensure the safety of the public and cleanup personnel. The air quality info is updated daily on NEA's website. It is easily accessible from the homepage. The test includes measuring levels of volatile organic compounds, VOCs, that are commonly associated with bunkering fuels and other petrochemicals. In addition, NEA monitors ambient levels of VOCs at various locations in Singapore, and no anomalies have been detected. Air quality has been within safe levels at the affected beaches, including on Saturday when the oil spill first washed up on beaches. And even though members of public near the beachfront or shoreline may experience odor from time to time, it is safe to be around the beaches, except the areas that are cordoned off to facilitate cleaning operations. Second, on protective equipment. Contractors equip their workers according to the nature of the work carried out. In the early stage of the cleanup, as a sizable amount of oil washed up on shore and strong fumes were observed, NEA issued a general advisory for personnel involved in the general beach cleanup effort to include masks, goggles, rubber gloves, and high waterproof boots as part of their PPE. Now that the bulk of the oil has been removed, NEA has updated the advisory to no longer require masks and goggles. To elaborate, the type of PPE required depends on the site conditions and types of operations. For example, a worker handling the bagging of sand should wear rubber gloves, but those shoveling will need gloves with better grip. Contractors can assess the site conditions, nature of tasks, and risks and decide what is safe and practical. The public should not be surprised to see variations of PPE used in different situations and locations. Third, agencies and their contractors should also ensure that sufficient rest breaks and rehydration are provided, as cleaning personnel are often working under the hot sun. Next phase of cleaning up. The public is naturally concerned about the status of our beaches when the cleanups will be completed and when the beaches can be reopened. The first phase of the cleanup focused on removing the oil slicks and contaminated sand from the surface of the affected beaches and deploying booms to avoid further contamination. This is making good progress and approaching completion. We are moving into the next phase of the cleanup response, which will be more complex in nature as we focus on difficult to clean areas like rock bunds, breakwaters, and oil trapped deeper in the sand. The next phase will involve trained personnel using more specialized equipment. Let me explain why this phase of cleaning is not as straightforward. The rock bunds are not as accessible as beach shorelines, and their surfaces are uneven. Oil that has slipped into the boulder crevices needs to be thoroughly flushed out. We want to minimize the oil flushed out from contaminating other areas. We are also mindful of keeping our workers safe as they operate over rocky terrain which can be uneven, hard to reach as they are sea-facing, and very slippery. In some areas where there is sensitive biodiversity, we will take precautions during cleaning and adjust the cleaning method if necessary and appropriately. Even as we clear the beach and shoreline, oil remnants at sea may still wash ashore. There could also be secondary contamination from the cleaning of other areas. So we will need to continue with the regular cleaning of beaches even as we embark on more specialized cleaning. The next phase of cleanup operations commenced on the rock bunds at Siloso Beach on 21st June. In the coming weeks, similar operations will be carried out at Sentosa Cove, Siloso Beach, Labrador Nature Reserve, and East Coast Park. We will test our various cleaning methods to find the most suitable ones for respective sites and refine our operations as we go along. We expect to take around 3 months to complete this next phase of cleaning, after which we will progressively reopen affected public areas. For less affected areas, we hope to open earlier. We will resume sea activities only when the water quality is assessed to be safe for primary contact activities. For biodiversity-sensitive sites, we'll need more time for assessment of impact to wildlife. Mr. Desmond Lee will elaborate later on. The situation continues to be fluid, and we should be prepared for some uncertainty. The oil spill situation remains dynamic. It is possible for some stranded oil to resurface at a later stage. Oil that has resurfaced in one location can also flow to and affect other areas carried by wind, current, and tide, and this may affect the completion of cleaning. Agencies will continue to remain vigilant and monitor the situation. I wish to thank our many volunteers who have offered their time and effort to assist in the cleanup operations. So far, our volunteers have not been directly involved in actual cleanup actions due to the complexity of the task and for their personal safety. We have largely completed the initial phase of cleaning and are embarking on more specialized cleaning. Once these are done, we will enter a final phase of cleaning where we comb the beach and remove tar balls. Tar balls are small blobs, you can see on the screen, small blobs of coagulated oil in the sand. This will likely be done with rakes and sieves rather than shovels to avoid removing too much uncontaminated sand. We're planning to involve volunteers working alongside our cleaning personnel so that we can relieve our workers and to accelerate the reopening of our beaches. We will ensure that this is conducted safely and that volunteers are properly equipped. Next, support for businesses. We seek the understanding of members of the public and businesses affected by this incident as we need time to recover safely. We are aware that businesses operating sea-based activities in the affected areas have been directly affected. As the situation is evolving, agencies are closely monitoring the impact on affected businesses. For Sentosa, SDC's primary focus now is on the recovery efforts, restoring water quality and protecting the surrounding wildlife along the 3 affected beaches. There is a steady improvement in the removal of oil slicks from the beaches, with a large majority of Siloso Beach already cleared of oily sand. Siloso Beach was the Siloso Beach was the least impacted by the incident, followed by Palawan and Tanjong Beach. All beachfront businesses are open, except for 2 that are conducting activities at sea. We're in touch with these businesses and are closely monitoring the business impact. I will now move on to food safety and water quality. Our nearest local fish farms are located in the Johor Straits, away from the path of the oil spill. None have been affected thus far. MPA had deployed a quick response force on standby near our fish farms, ready to carry out oil response operations in the event of oil sightings. Our local fish remains safe to consume. To ensure food safety, SFA has been taking samples of seafood from farms twice daily for testing. And to date, our test results did not indicate any food safety concerns and there is no taint of petroleum detected. Nevertheless, we remain vigilant. SFA has been in close contact with fish farms to put in place a range of preventive measures. SFA issued advisory to the farms and provided hotlines for the farms to call should the farms notice any abnormalities or require any assistance. SFA has also distributed canvas sheets and absorbent pads to our farms to prevent potential contamination should the oil spill spread to our farms. SFA and some farms have preemptively deployed canvas sheets around the perimeter of the farms to reduce the risk of oil incursion into the farm. SFA has also been engaging farmers to stand ready for other measures, such as early harvesting of fish if needed. Beyond the testing of local seafood, SFA regularly tests food imported into Singapore as part of its surveillance and monitoring regime. On beach water quality, NEA is also monitoring the water quality at affected beaches. No oil has been observed at Changi Beach. As a precaution, we have advised members of the public to avoid swimming and other primary water contact activities at Changi Beach until further notice. Such an advisory is already in place for Pasir Ris and Sembawang beaches since early this year due to high bacterial counts in the water at those beaches. On public safety, we will provide updates on whether it is safe for the public to swim or carry out water activities at the beaches. The latest advisory on beach water quality are easily accessible on NEA's website and MyENV app. On water supply, PUB has updated there has been no impact to our water supply. Our desalination plant have not observed signs of oil near their saltwater intake. Our real-time sensors did not pick up any abnormalities. As a precautionary measure, PUB deployed containment booms at Marina Barrage on 16 June. There has been no impact to the water quality in Marina Bay. In conclusion, We are heartened by the strong support from members of public who have come forward to volunteer, as well as acts of kindness shown to the cleaning crews. Whilst we have made good progress in our cleaning operation, we need more time to clean the rock bunds and complicated shoreline. We will reopen the beaches for activities with primary contact with seawater when we are satisfied that it is safe to do so. We ask for patience from the public over the next few months. I would like to thank our service providers and contractors who have responded quickly to the incident, the cleaners and workers who have worked tirelessly to clean the oil slicks under trying conditions, and our staff and team for monitoring, testing the air, water, and seafood, and preparing contingencies round the clock 24/7 over the past week. When we are ready for the next phase of operation, we hope that Singaporeans will volunteer to help with the cleanup so that we can return the beaches clean and safe to the public soon as possible.
Colleagues, from the onset of the incident, agencies have been working together to mitigate the impact of the oil spill. While MPA contained the oil spill at sea, NParks deployed oil-absorbent booms to protect biodiversity-sensitive coastal and marine areas affected by the oil spill, such as Belaya Creek and the rocky shore along Labrador Nature Reserve. Even as the cleaning of the shoreline at Labrador Nature Reserve is largely completed, we are closely observing the area, and oil-absorbent booms will continue to be deployed there as a precaution. As a further precaution, preventive measures have been taken to protect biodiversity-sensitive areas that have so far been unaffected by the oil spill. For example, oil-absorbent booms have been preemptively deployed at Chek Jawa wetlands at Pulau Ubin, at Coney Island Park, as well as Pasir Ris Park. We have also deployed volunteers at East Coast Park and West Coast Park to aid NParks colleagues in keeping a lookout for oil-slicked wildlife. If needed, affected wildlife will be rescued for veterinary treatment and care. Members of the public who encounter any oil-slicked animal can also contact NParks Animal Response Centre hotline. Because of prompt action and close cooperation with the nature community, we've managed to limit the immediate impact of the oil spill on our coastal and marine biodiversity and habitats. Nevertheless, the oil spill situation remains dynamic. There could be a time lag between the incidence of the oil spill and its effects on biodiversity and habitats. It will take time for us to assess the long-term environmental impact. Some of the impact on biodiversity and habitats may also only show up later. This is because the effect of the oil spill on sensitive species such as corals, seagrasses, and sea stars may only be visible weeks or months later, such as during spawning periods. From our experience with the last major oil spill that impacted Chek Jawa wetlands on Pulau Ubin 7 years ago in 2017, our habitats are relatively resilient. Even then, recovery took a few months. Likewise, monitoring studies of the intertidal habitat at Tanah Merah that was affected by the 2010 oil spill showed that the seagrasses and coral reefs there started to recover after a year. Today, they no longer show any visual signs of impact. As the tides may continue to sweep in more oil remnants, we will remain vigilant, work with our partners to keep a close watch on the impact of the oil spill on our biodiversity as well as our coastal and marine habitats. This will involve intertidal and subtidal surveys and biodiversity impact surveys at affected sites. We also stand ready to rescue and rehabilitate wildlife where needed. We are encouraged by the public response to the oil spill incident. Over 1,500 people have come forward and signed up to help with the oil spill management efforts, and over 2,000 others have registered to be kept closely updated on ongoing efforts and future volunteering opportunities. Thus far, we have deployed around 400 volunteers, including volunteers of the Public Hygiene Council and the Friends of the Marine Park.
Some of the volunteers joined my NParks colleagues to patrol East Coast Park and West Coast Park. They advised members of the public to stay away from affected beachfronts and helped report sightings of oil stains and of oil-slicked wildlife. Marine experts, as well as volunteers from the Friends of the Marine Park, are carrying out surveys with NParks on St. John's Island and Lazarus Island to track the impact of the oil spill on biodiversity on these offshore islands. We are grateful for the community's strong support. Last Friday, Senior Parliamentary Secretary Bayam King and I had a closed-door discussion with representatives from 30 nature and community groups, organizations, and IHLs. We were joined by colleagues from our 3 ministries, as well as MPA, NEA, NParks, and SDC. We discussed the next phase in managing the impact of the oil spill on our coastal habitats and marine life. We wanted to tap on their knowledge, specialist skills, and experience, and work together to deal with this more effectively. Several good suggestions were raised during this session, broadly around the following 5 areas. First, leveraging on networks of the various stakeholder groups to disseminate information so that they can help to update the public. Second, galvanizing the wider network of partners such as beach cleanup groups, nature kakis, and students, and mobilizing them for coastal cleanup and citizen patrol. Third, strengthening wildlife rescue and recovery processes by establishing communication channels, protocols, and education material. Fourth, carrying out impact assessments and habitat surveys to monitor the effects on our wildlife and biodiversity, as well as fifth, conducting research in partnership with our scientific community to understand the longer-term impacts of oil spills on biodiversity. Together, we are developing an action plan to protect and restore coastal habitats over the next 6 months and beyond. Now, when NEA colleagues have assessed the affected areas to be safe and can be open for public access, we will work with our partners on recovery efforts, which include coastal cleanup activities, beach patrols, wildlife recovery, and habitat surveys. Our Friends of the Marine Park will partner us on habitat surveys at the intertidal areas such as along East Coast Park and Changi Beach Park. We will also work with volunteers to carry out intertidal and subtidal surveys on our southern islands. Community beach cleanup groups such as Straits and International Coastal Cleanup Singapore, ICCS, have started to coordinate their networks so that they can organize beach cleanups once we can do so. Our partners from Mandai Wildlife Group, Singapore Veterinary Association, ACRES, and the Sea Aquarium have a pool of veterinarians and have offered to support our wildlife rescue and rehabilitation efforts if we find distressed animals in the coming days, weeks, and months. Meanwhile, other partners such as the Bird Society of Singapore and Otter Watch will work with us to share tips such as do's and don'ts when spotting oil-slicked wildlife with the wider public and increase public awareness on the oil spill response. We will also tap on the scientific experts and professionals to conduct sustained post-spill biodiversity impact monitoring, surveys, and research. The scientific community and the institutes of higher learning such as NUS, NTU, and the St. John's Island National Marine Lab have commenced some surveys at the Southern Islands and Labrador Nature Reserve. They will also undertake surveys at Serapong and Tanjung Rimau in Sentosa. My colleagues at NParks are working with them on survey methods and research questions, and they will gather the expertise that is required. Now, there are many other groups who are involved in this next phase, but in the interest of time, I won't go through each and every one of them. We will sustain these efforts jointly over the next few months and check in regularly with our partners along the way to take stock of our progress and our findings. Now, in the last 10 days, our agencies have worked together and coordinated the response to the oil slick incident or the oil spill incident We have partnered industry as well as our community in this effort. With this, we've been able to limit the immediate impact of the oil spill. Now, in any incident, there are always learning points. In fact, our operational responses have been enhanced from our experience in previous incidents, as well as from international best practices. We will do the same here. The situation is still dynamic and evolving. We are watching the situation closely, and our focus now is on the ongoing operations. We would like to thank the community, as well as our colleagues and our contractors, for coming together to work on these efforts, support these efforts, and we'll continue to partner and support them. Thank you.